Welcome to The Shift. I'm Dean.
And I'm Akasha. We cover the latest in all things science, technology, and culture, with new episodes dropping every Monday.
From the latest advances in knowledge systems and information theory to exploring emerging mediums of art and medicine. Join us as we do bite-sized deep dives on the latest.
The shift is now. Hey everyone, welcome to a deep dive that might just change the way you think about health and healing.
Oh, I like that.
We're going to be exploring the fascinating world of Taoist meditation.
Okay.
And not just for inner peace, but for its potential to impact your physical and mental well-being.
Right.
And get this, it's backed by modern medical research.
That's really interesting. We often think of ancient practices and modern science as separate.
Yeah.
But the research we're diving into today really, blurs those lines in a really exciting way.
It really does. So at the heart of this deep dive is the work of Dr. Peter Hudoba and his colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Dr. Hudoba is a neurosurgeon.
Okay,
so we're
sure.
talking about someone deeply rooted in Western medicine, right?
Right.
But here's the fascinating part. He's also deeply into integrative medicine, bridging the gap between those traditional approaches and more holistic practices.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes his research so compelling.
Yeah.
He's been studying how specific Taoist meditation techniques impact various health conditions, and some of the findings, I have to say, are seriously impressive.
Okay.
We're talking potential benefits for cancer patients, people battling depression, and even improvements in overall well-being.
Okay, so let's dive into those specifics. You mentioned Taoist techniques. Can you paint a picture for us? What do these practices actually look like?
Yeah, so one practice that Dr. Hudoba's research focuses on is called Tao calligraphy tracing meditation.
Okay.
And the best way to think about this is you're tracing beautiful calligraphy with your fingers while chanting specific mantras.
Okay, wait. So that sounds surprisingly doable, even for someone like me who can barely sign their name legibly.
Absolutely.
What is it like to actually do it?
It's designed to be accessible. And that's, I think, where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The physical act of tracing, the focus it requires, and the chanting all work together to create this heightened sense of awareness. So imagine a moving meditation that engages both your mind and body.
I can see how that would be really powerful. You also mentioned mantra chanting. Break that down for us. What does it actually involve?
So essentially, it's the repetition of specific sounds or words, and these mantras are believed to carry a certain vibrational energy. The act of chanting is thought to influence the body's energy systems. And in our age of constant mental noise, emails, notifications, you name it, it's like giving your brain a much-needed break.
You know, even just hearing you describe that, I feel myself getting a little bit more centered. It makes you wonder, what kind of impact could this have if you practiced it regularly?
That's true.
But let's get into the research. What kind of results are we seeing with these Taoist techniques, particularly when it comes to something like quality of life?
Yeah.
That can be hard to measure, right?
And it can, and this is where it gets really compelling because Dr. Hudoba's team used standardized questionnaires to actually measure improvement in areas like pain management, emotional well-being, and even the ability to participate in daily activities. And the results, well, after practicing these techniques, participants across multiple studies reported significant improvements in their quality of life.
Wow. So these aren't just anecdotal feel-good reports. We're talking measurable progress. Do any specific examples really drive that point home?
Absolutely. One study that comes to mind focused on breast cancer patients.
Okay.
And the results were remarkable. This simple practice improved quality of life across the board for these patients, touching on everything from their physical comfort to their emotional well-being.
That's incredibly powerful, and it really speaks to the potential of these practices, even in the face of serious illness.
It's true.
Now, we also wanted to delve into the research on depression.
Yes.
What did Dr. Hudoba's team find there?
Yeah, so they conducted a study specifically on unipolar depression, and participants were asked to practice Tao calligraphy, tracing meditation, and mantra chanting.
Okay.
The results were, dare I say, impressive.
Don't hold back. Give us the details.
Okay. They observed a marked improvement in depression symptoms after practicing these techniques.
What kind of improvements? What kind of improvements did they see, and how did they measure that?
That's a great question. So they saw a decrease in the severity of their symptoms.
Okay.
And what's fascinating is that the study actually drew a direct link between the number of hours practiced and the level of improvement.
Okay.
More practice led to feeling better.
Okay, now that's fascinating. It's one thing to say, yeah, people felt better, but to actually tie it to the amount of practice, that's huge.
It is.
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
what does this say about these ancient practices?
Well, I think it highlights just how much potential these ancient practices hold.
Yeah.
We're constantly searching for effective treatments for depression, right?
Right.
And here we have these techniques that, at least according to these initial findings, seem to have a real positive impact. Of course, further research is needed, but it opens up a fascinating new avenue for exploration.
Absolutely. Now, beyond quality of life and depression, were there any other noteworthy findings in Dr. Hudoba's research?
There is one more I think you'll find interesting.
Okay.
One study examined the effects of Tao calligraphy and mantra chanting in a post-acute rehabilitation setting.
Okay.
And the results were surprising, to say the least. They found that patients who practiced these techniques seemed to recover faster
Really?
and were more likely to be discharged home rather than needing further care.
Wait, really? That's incredible. How can a meditation practice have such a significant impact on recovery time and hospital stays?
It is pretty amazing, right? It's a question that begs further exploration, which is exactly what we're going to do in part 2 of this deep dive. We'll unpack the potential mechanisms behind these findings, exploring how mindfulness, energy flow, and even concepts from traditional Chinese medicine might play a role.
Okay, I've got to admit, my mind is a little blown right now.
Really?
We're talking about meditation, speeding up recovery time, and leading to shorter hospital stays. I need to hear more about how this is even possible.
It is remarkable, isn't it? And that's where Dr. Hudoba's insights really shine.
Okay.
He points to a couple of key areas that might help explain these findings.
Okay.
We're talking about the power of mindfulness. And then there's this whole concept of energy flow, particularly as it's understood in traditional Chinese medicine.
All right, let's break those down one by one. Mindfulness first, because it is a bit of a buzzword these days.
Yeah.
What does it actually mean in this context?
So at its core, mindfulness is all about cultivating a heightened awareness of the present moment.
Okay.
It's about tuning into your thoughts, your feelings, your bodily sensations without judgment.
Oh.
And remember those Taoist practices we talked about, like Tao calligraphy, tracing meditation, and mantra chanting? Well, they seem to naturally cultivate this state of mindfulness.
So it's not about emptying your mind, it's more about being present with what's happening both internally and externally.
Yes, exactly.
But how does that translate into tangible health benefits, especially ones as dramatic as the ones we're discussing?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Right.
Here's the thing. There's a growing body of research suggesting that mindfulness practices can profoundly impact brain function.
Okay.
We're talking about reducing stress, improving emotional regulation, essentially rewiring the brain to be more resilient and adaptable.
It's like taking your brain to the gym.
Yes.
But instead of lifting weights, you're training your attention and awareness, and those mental gains translate into real-world benefits like a smoother recovery process or even managing pain more effectively.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, are you ready to explore that concept of energy flow
Oh, yeah.
I mentioned?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so traditional Chinese medicine has this idea of qi, often translated as vital energy or life force.
Okay.
They believe that qi flows through specific pathways in the body, and if that flow is out of whack, it can lead to illness.
So kind of like a circulatory system,
Yes,
but for energy instead of blood.
that's a great way to put it. And here's how it links back to Dr. Hudoba's research. He suggests that these Taoist meditation techniques might actually influence this flow of qi, bringing balance and harmony to your entire system.
So by practicing these techniques, you're fine-tuning your body's energy field. That's fascinating.
That's the idea. Now, it's important to remember that we're still in the early stages of understanding exactly how these practices work on a physiological level.
Right.
More research is definitely needed. But even if we don't fully grasp the mechanics yet, the positive impact is hard to ignore, right?
It really makes you wonder what other possibilities are out there.
Right.
What other secrets these ancient traditions hold. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we should probably touch on the limitations of the research we've discussed so far.
You're absolutely right. We always want to be mindful of not overstating the findings.
Right.
A lot of the data we've been talking about is based on self-reported experiences.
Okay.
Questionnaires are valuable tools, but they rely on individual perception, which can be subjective, right?
So someone might genuinely feel better after practicing these techniques.
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily mean there's a measurable physiological change we can point to yet.
Exactly. We're talking about bridging the gap between subjective experience and objective scientific evidence. That's why we need larger, more robust studies to really confirm these initial findings and dig deeper into the how and why.
So we're not saying these Taoist meditation techniques are miracle cures or anything.
Right.
But the early research is certainly promising.
Absolutely. And honestly, that's what makes this whole field so exciting.
Yeah.
We're on the edge of a whole new understanding of how ancient wisdom and modern science can work together.
Yeah.
It's a pretty amazing time to be exploring these connections.
It feels like we've just peeked through the keyhole into a much larger world.
You're spot on.
So where do we even begin?
Well, luckily, there are some great resources available.
Okay.
Dr. Hudoba's research is a fantastic starting point. His abstracts give a really clear overview of the techniques he studied.
Right.
And you can actually find those online pretty easily.
Yeah, where would someone go to find those?
You can find them through the Sean Research Foundation,
Okay.
which is dedicated to exploring the scientific basis of these types of practices.
Perfect. So that's a great place to start for anyone who wants to dig deeper into the research itself.
Absolutely.
But what about actually learning these techniques?
Yeah.
If someone wanted to try, Tao calligraphy tracing meditation or mantra chanting, are there teachers or programs out there?
Definitely. There are many qualified teachers and organizations
Okay.
that offer instruction in these techniques.
Great.
My advice is to do your research, find a teacher who resonates with you,
Right.
someone with a solid understanding of the practice.
And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yes,
This is about your health and well-being, so you have every right to be discerning.
absolutely.
And find a practice and a teacher that feels right for you.
It's about finding the right path for you.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a personal journey.
So it's like we've opened this door to a whole new world of possibilities.
It is.
We started with Taoist meditation, but this deep dive has become about so much more than that. We're
Right.
talking about the connection between ancient wisdom and modern health and how we can use both to really enhance our lives.
We've only just begun to scratch the surface.
And it sounds like there's a lot more to uncover.
A lot more.
This deep dive has been packed with fascinating findings, but more than that, I hope it's sparked a curiosity in you, our listener.
I hope so too.
Maybe it's even inspired you to embark on a journey of discovery of your own.
That's what we always hope for.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive,
Thank you for having me.
and we look forward to exploring with you again soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Join us on October 10th for the Shift event hosted by SF Tech Week.
If you like today's podcast, share your thoughts on X, Instagram, or Facebook. We'll be reposting our favorite comments. And that wraps up this episode. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, the shift is now. Agency, powered by 5D Studios.